This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Hey there, and welcome to the Thinkfitness Life podcast. We're fueled by the incredible clients who inspire us every day, allowing us to elevate their health and fitness journeys. On this show, you'll gain valuable insights from top professionals, hear inspiring transformation stories, and discover the knowledge and motivation to create your own best life. Let's dive in. As someone who has continuously used therapy as a way to heal and elevate my personal performance, I know wholeheartedly that you cannot always read the label when you're in the jar. And that's why it's so helpful to have a professional in your corner to talk to. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp to provide our listeners with the opportunity to work with a licensed therapist from the comfort of your own home. Receive 10% off your first month when you sign up by going to betterhelp.com/TFL. That's betterhelp.com/T as in think, F as in fitness, L as in life. And remember, you're not alone. There are people out there who can help.
Welcome back to the Think Fitness Life podcast. This is episode 200. Crazy to think that we've been doing this for 200 episodes, which really started off way back in the day as two people having a conversation at a break table in the break room at Equinox. And it really started and stemmed from our passion for this world of exercise science and exercise training, nutrition and mindset, but really seeing other people go down their training road, not working with us, or just watching people on the floor doing certain things and listening to certain things and thinking to ourselves, how could we do this better? How can we get more information? How can we get our word and teachings out to people that really we weren't talking to on a daily basis because we were training our own clients? And then how could our clients benefit from the information that we had that they might have not gotten into via our conversation? This Think Fitness Life podcast, this Think Fitness Life business started from those tables in a break room at Equinox with a person at first that I didn't even know. And we have long become basically almost brothers in the family, even though we live separate sides of the country now. But we grew this everlasting bond of training and understanding how to drive people's mindsets and how to drive people's passions and what they want to do from the fitness world and into their own lives. And it's going to be a great 200 episode because we got Matt coming back on. It's been a while since he's been on one. I know he's very busy, and I'm looking very much forward to this. I've been kind of excited since he messaged me a couple weeks ago about doing this 200 because this is going to be, for me, this is old times. This is sitting down. Literally, we used to just research and talk science, and we would question each other on different research and different methods. And it made us grow as coaches. And I can still to this day remember some of the workouts we were doing with planks, holding plates and standing on this. And Matt would add a twist here. And then I would come in with this there. And that's how we really grew as coaches. And I think many people need to have someone in their life, that's going to train with them and work with them and push them through different modalities. And even to this day, Matt, you still do that for me whether it's hitting me with the Instagram post, like, oh, you got to get more hip extension and drive through the legs, because I got back into Olympic weightlifting years after you were been doing it. And I'm, damn, it's always a great ebb and flow. And I'm happy that we can do this for 200. But if people don't know, and this first time listening, Matt and I started this way back in the day to really help people become better and to improve their lives. And we got Matt coming back on the show today to dive into what we've learned throughout the years and how our conversations throughout the years have really shaped how we train and who we train.
And I just feel I have to say it because I did, at least for the first 100. Eric's been kind of taking over it more recently, but welcome back to the Think Fitness Life podcast, Mindset, Exercise, Nutrition. I mean, that's really how we all started. And it is great to be back here. And it feels my brain went through a blender in certain ways of thinking back to the way that we were when we first started and fast forwarding to today and just kind of seeing all the paradigm shifts and the information changes. And it is really interesting. And I love that we circle it back to why we started this in the first place. And it was just two trainers having conversations around the nuances that at the time felt exceptions to the rule. And everyone was just talking about really general information at the time. And a lot of people were getting sold on a lot of fad ways of living and being sold these lifestyle fixes. And we would just kind of talk about the pros and cons. And in weighing the pros and cons, just having friendly debate or exchange of ideas. No one was trying to be wrong. We just sort of offer up different perspectives based on our experiences. We thought, oh my gosh, people should be hearing this. People should be hearing both sides of this argument. People should be hearing the pros for keto and the cons for keto. People should be hearing what the short-term gains give you, but the long-term consequences are of certain things. And from there, we just figured, what Field of Dreams style, if we record it, they will listen. And fast forward 8 years later, we're wrapping up our 8th year of doing this, our 8th season of doing this. I'd say one of the major shifts is that it's no longer about a bottleneck of information. It's about a bottleneck of accountability and discipline. And I think that actually makes things more fun because it's less about trying to give people the answers and more about trying to solve each individual's lifestyle. And that's what I think embodies what Eric and I both love about this industry is personal training. It should always remain a personal aspect to it. I don't know where Eric's coaching has gone at this point, but I know for me, that's kind of where I've kind of seen it is it's less of me correcting people or teaching somebody something new and more of me helping them establish the nuances for their individual life that they need to adapt to that they can't find just general information for.
That's the one big thing that's definitely changed. If you look back and look at our couple of first season of episodes, we were diving into the science and really going into research. And that was the fun part about it. But your people, unfortunately, they don't care anymore, or they want to know the quick information blast and they're going to get it from TikTok or Instagram. And over the years, our really podcast has changed a bit and it's morphed with the times. And I tell you, I miss those days where you're really starting to dive into research and understand that stuff. But your people nowadays, they understand the research, but that doesn't help them make a decision or keep them accountable on actually doing what said research says. And it's funny because you mentioned how that's changed your coaching. And I've never really thought about that until you just mentioned it. And it's, you look back and yeah, my coaching has changed over the years to much more embody, hey, what is this person doing when I'm not seeing them? Rather than, hey, we got to make sure we're doing all this stuff, which we still do the nuts and bolts of it. But remember times where we had to come up with something new, something crazy. Now it's just, how do we get this person to come up with something new in their life, not just an exercise?
Yeah, it's less of me feeling I'm giving a lecture where I feel in my early training days, I was explaining a lot of things, maybe over-explaining to a degree, but also just people really wanted to know why they were doing something because they were almost coming into the training as if it was just a college course. They were taking the course to learn something and that they were going to take on with them for the rest of their life. And I loved that relationship. But I feel more and more as the training has evolved and my career has evolved that the people who have lasted the longest are the ones who aren't really interested in learning anything more. They're interested in inheriting all those benefits that come from exercise, but they need to outsource it. They're just busy, or they have a lot of family life to take care of in a good way that they're busy. It's not they're preoccupied themselves with drugs and alcohol or something like that. It's just that their lives demand much from them that they don't have the mental bandwidth to learn this stuff from a trainer's perspective. And thus it's like they become their own little empires. You think of an athlete who is living penny to penny, paycheck to paycheck with nothing left over, trying to scrounge around to get a paycheck, meal ticket out. And nowadays we have the NIL. We have people making a lifetime amount of money in college. It's just, there's so many things that change about this. But again, where I'm going with this is that then that person hires out everything. They hire out their trainer, they hire out their nutritionist. They become this little empire because they have much cash flow that their expendable resource is no longer time, it's money. They start to use that and invest in themselves and outsource these things. And that's where I feel the tenured trainer becomes, is if you're not educating, if you're not one of the 1% of the 1% who's making money online, being an influencer or in the strength conditioning field, and then you're probably have a set list of people that pay you to outsource their fitness. And I love that. I love that I get to be that. But in terms of, and that's always going to be a steady base of income, but in terms of remembering why we got into this field in the first place. I mean, we wanted to make a difference. We wanted to mend a part of the world that was broken in a way by helping other people. We are in service industries. I come from a long line of service providers. My grandfather was a doctor in the Korean War. My other grandfather was a dentist, and they were service providers. So that's what I became. And in that effort, in that endeavor, becomes a little bit more effort on the coach's part to try to implement and integrate fitness and these modalities into people's lives, no matter what the individual is doing, whether they're an athlete, whether they're 70 years old and just trying to keep up with their grandkids, or they're coming back from a total hip replacement. Our job, I was trying to say before, our job, the bottleneck isn't information. The bottleneck is now application, accountability. That's where I see things going next. And that's where I see the bigger picture. We'll talk a little bit about it later. The bigger picture of the way that kind of Eric and I are operating is to go after companies, because in this wave of, I guess we'll say, the generational changes, people are recognizing that we don't want to just grind ourselves to a bone once that, if you think of a hamster on a wheel, once that hamster is dead and that wheel's no longer spinning for that company, just throw it out and get a new one in there. People are actually really putting a dollar figure to things, absenteeism or disengagement or turnover. These things now have a thorn in people's sides because they can actually put a dollar figure to how much money they're losing. Whereas before it'd say, oh, these are just individual problems. We'll just hit the hiring field and we'll just get some new people in here until they see later down the line. This is a reoccurring theme. We can only keep people for X amount of time before they'd burn out. And before they didn't care about burnout, now it becomes in people's awareness. And then thankfully we see companies investing in workplace wellness programs. It's just, they're doing it in the wrong way. They're doing all these perks and optional benefits rather than really integrating it into a woven rhythm into the life and energy of the company. But I kind of went off track a little bit too much there, went a little tangent, but I figured it would be reminiscent of our old ways of how we would do things. And I wanted to cycle back here as Eric was talking about how we first talked about things at the beginning. And I want to mention one of our first episodes, I think it was episode 10 or 15, somewhere there, was just breathing. We talked about breathing mechanics and it blew up. It was probably the most watched episode compared to the first 10 collectively. And it's funny because now that's not a new launch thing. 8-9 years ago, you'd be, let's talk about your breathing. And they would think that you're this really profound individual. Now it's everywhere. Everyone's talking about breathing. And thankfully, I love that. I love that the little hidden gems are apparent in people's faces these days.
It is. It's cool that we can look back and we have that podcast 8 years ago. That's okay. We had this. It's something that we always said, these things are timeless. These podcasts are timeless, but you can go back and be, oh, well, we were there 8 years ago. And I look at it as, this information is really good now that it's mainstream everywhere with AI and Instagram and all these reels. There's pros and cons, the dichotomy of, oh, it's really good, people can get it, but then it's really good, but I don't think also people understand it. They listen to it from AI or from Instagram, but they're not getting the full in-depth. And that's where what we've done in the past can always lie and really be ingrained. And still, as coaches, what we can do is, when we do have clients or people that come ask, is really break that down. And it's still fun. It is fun getting into the weeds of that stuff, but your average person's not going to look at an episode on breathing and be like, this is what I want to listen to. It's that person that wants to go find it. And that's how everything's kind of morphed throughout the years, and the information gap, which is great. I think it also benefits the coach nowadays, where you do have AI, you have all this realm of these self-generated, where I don't have to have a coach, but those apps, those AI, or even some online coaching, there's certain models, and we've talked about this, that what our model would never want to be is just, oh, we are going to give you something and let you just go, because there's no accountability there. There's no one saying, hey, I'm going to look at your sets and reps. I need to progressive overload you this week and add reps here and change intensity there. And I do feel bad for some people. And I've talked to those people that are just on, oh, I made a ChatGPT workout, and you look at it and I'm not saying it's bad, it's average.
Sometimes they can be incredible. Sometimes the ChatGPT can put out an amazing program.
But what I found it kind of lacks, though, is one interesting thing is when it comes to periodization. It can make 4-week blocks really, really well, or workouts really well, but sometimes it has a hard time getting into certain undulating periodization blocks, because there's a lot of information to pick from. And that's, for us, that's the discretion of coaches to kind of understand where the person's at. And that's always just think that's a limitation of AI and ChatGPT. Do I feel threatened as a coach? No, because it can't really hold accountability. And people see that over time. People will see that well, why am I doing this so many days in a row? And this person over here said rear foot elevated split squats are good. They always have those questions. And that's where Think Fitness Life lies. And people who are starting to question those questions, and then they can dig a little further. And that's where we're going to be, is in that realm of, okay, do we have questions? How do we do something better? Now, like you said, for the corporate wellness, it's interesting, because you remember back in the day at the Equinox, we would go do certain corporate wellness events.
Yeah, we'd bring the InBody.
The InBody. And it was very much, you said, oh, we're going to do some perks, some this. But then there was some ones where we go and we would talk. And I felt those to be the best, because you then get to interact and you'd get so many questions. Mm-hmm. And it was not questions, do you do keto or do you do something crazy? It was, how do I find discipline to eat Greek yogurt in the morning? Or how do I change my posture when sitting at desk or sitting on the train?
Those are individual based. Those are based on their experience.
Very much. And then you could start to interact with people and say, well, for you, this is what we do, and this is how we look at it. Not just being, oh, you're going to get thrown into overall wellness program. And you see where it's kind of changed. Some places have changed, and I would assume some places haven't, where they're just, you said, they're giving, oh, here's your perks, here's this, here's benefits. But how do you drive people to hold themselves accountable?
Yeah, and I think it is such a key distinction, because again, it's not they're confused about what's going on with the masses in the world of general scientific studies and what's accepted. They're asking specifically, how is this applied in my particular scenario when I have to sit at a desk for X amount of hours, and when I get home I have to do this, and then this happens, and you can tell there's a real predicament that they're having, and we're helping with the application side of things. And I think back to the AI conversation, that actually is relieving. I think a lot of people feel threatened, but I think it's actually a good thing because it's generally good. It's not, you were saying before, it's not going to be amazing. You can't be like, give me a program that's going to turn me into a Tiger Woods golfer in 6 weeks. And it's not going to just spit out this thing that you follow and then boom, in 6 weeks, you're going to play as good as Tiger Woods. It's just not that creative, and it's not that nuanced and that specific. It's going to be generally good. You're going to be able to give me a strength program, give me a weight loss program, give me a diet plan for losing 10 pounds, whatever. It's going to ask maybe some specific questions about your height and weight that it will make specifics to. But again, where I'm going with this is that's good for general population who just want to generally be good, just generally be fit. But when it comes to the more specifics, where coaches can step in, it's going to be your athletic performance people. It's going to be, I feel, your corporate wellness people, because again, that company, that system cares about performance. They're willing to invest in things that are going to help elevate their performance, which in what we've learned more recently deals with things accruing costs associated with the lack of care to those areas. Things turnover, things, people being sick, people working while being sick. We call it disengagement or absenteeism. We have to, we get to, as coaches, almost get to shift where our focus lies. It's okay, we're at the forefront trying to help the general pop because obesity was on the rise and COPD was on the rise and heart disease and everything that was on the rise, diabetes. But here we are, we're now in 2025, and the GLP-1 drugs have been really perfected in a good way. And in conjunction with medical intervention and coaching, they can be a really sustainable advancement in someone's health. And then in conjunction with AI, again, these general pop people can get access to the information, the programming that they need. Now, where the gap is again, we talk about kind of that layer of performance. Nothing's going to be able to substitute individual hands-on experience over time, because then that establishes a creativity in that coach's brain. AI is not very creative, and AI doesn't observe you doing things. And AI doesn't say, okay, I've been watching you try to perfect your snatch for the last 3 weeks, and I can see that the same underlying issue is you're not keeping the bar close to you and you're not keeping your hips high enough when you start the clean. The monitoring aspect, the being able to evaluate progression, regression, the creativity aspect, all of this plays a role into the value that the human coach brings. The introduction of AI and all this extra, I guess, technology around this area, this coaching area, because it exemplifies even more the permanent layer of individual value that coaches bring to the table. And I think if anything, it just separates the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. But again, that's where I see the value of, especially Thinkfitness Life, pivoting more towards helping the community, helping a system, helping a team, just the same way that we have, I don't even know how many people are involved behind the scenes. You have 52 people on a roster, on a football roster, but how many coaches and staff and trainers and nutritionists and beyond that go to help the actual system, the team. That's where we are as coaches, is what's good for the hive is what's good for the bee, and what's good for the bee is what's good for the hive. If we can help companies from the top down, so to speak, embody that in their work field, in their career, then they get to go home and embody that with their families as well.
And I've always with that kind of thought of general population, because we've worked in some of the higher end gyms, and even the gym I work at now today, is you get these people that they fall into that general population, but they still want to be pushed. At some point, the AI is there. I just need to do more, or I want to do more. I want to be a little more competitive. And I'm sure you can think of a handful of clients off the bat that came to you saying, hey, I really want to train. Like, I just want to do some different stuff. I want to do some stuff that's going to challenge me, and I don't want it to be generic. And we do always, it's funny because you take that into consideration and you're, well, this person's just your average business person, and they could be perfectly fine on a upper lower split. But that's just not what they wanted. And they just really had the overall thought to be, okay, I want a little bit more, but I want you to really challenge me to do it and hold me to it. And I think that was one of the eye-opening things when you get into the corporate world is you treat those individuals just that. As they want, most people could be generic and they're going to be, but where the outliers, you can get those people from general pop to understand that they have their own goals, their own drives, and they want to be accountable. They just need a place to start. And it was very interesting to always see that day in and day out with certain people that I didn't train or did train that would kind of be going through same workouts or same protocols for years. And you talk to them and people get struggled. And I'm sure you probably know this person. There's one guy that at a gym that he was a big bencher. He always wanted his bench to go way up and he'd always talk to you. He would never personal train. He would always tell you, I'm never going to personal train. But this dude was just massive. Biggest chest I've ever seen and traps I've ever seen. But he was the nicest guy because he'd always ask you, well, how can I add 5 pounds to my bench? What methods new? What research is new? And he was just your average general pop guy that would never train, but it was enough to build that relationship that he understood that, okay, if I need to ask for advice, I'm going to go and ask this coach. I'm going to ask this for that. And that's, I really firmly believe people look for that when it comes to a lot of, you said, these wellness programs that aren't providing drives for people. What are we doing? Are we just giving an overall, here's some benefits for health, but what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to get done? And I think it really circles back to, we've talked a lot on this show about it, nutrition, how to hold people accountable nutritionally, asking the questions, and then the information comes. But it's really about how many conversations have you had with clients? What'd you eat today? What'd you eat yesterday? Are you going to prep food after this? Because all the training that we do in a session, that's good. But if someone doesn't recover or hasn't recovered prior or eaten the things, man, we as coaches, we got to start from somewhere else. And that's where it's really over the career being less impactful. Well, how many sets and reps we're doing is still important, but let me understand what your family's life, your home life, your work life, your stress life, because now I can see your, I want to call it your deeper waters, your struggles, and how can we help fix that to make these workouts more beneficial to help your overall health.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we're supposed to monitor their trajectory, the individual's trajectory of where we think they're headed. And yeah, as coaches, I think it's paramount to understand their home life and then tie it back to their goals. And I think a lot of times it always comes down to finding the rhythm for them. I think I think one thing I felt like you were kind of talking about there is the way that you meet some people who have this careful balancing act, and it's almost like they've balanced everything on this deck of cards, this house of cards, and they'll have to do this and they have to do that and they have to do this and this is, and if one thing throws off their routine, it all falls to shit. Mm-hmm. And I think the line is balance is okay, but harmony is better. And that's where that's where we've evolved, at least in individual personal training, literally my own training for myself, is to have my body be more harmonious with my lifestyle and not be, I guess, rigid on myself and how my training has to be, because then I have to always kind of zoom out and remember my bigger picture goal. I'm not trying to be a running back. I'm not going to enter the draft portal next year or something like that. And I have to keep that in mind, that my goal is longevity. My goal is to keep doing the same workouts that I get to do with a barbell, throwing it around for fun as I get older, and doing that in a safe way that is in conjunction with biomechanics, strength and mobility, and then kind of thinking of, I guess, little feedback signals that you anticipate the trajectory from. And this is where we kind of get into the nuances around the gap that AI provides, is that the science is there's always a lag period. There's always a gap from the science to the pioneer that kind of started things. And we can think of Bruce Lee using electricity to stimulate muscle growth and repair and recovery. And then how it became maybe 30, 40 years later, very paramount in physical therapy modalities. There was always somebody who did it first as the pioneer, and then we started studying it and repeating it in studies and seeing these benefits, and then it's accepted by the general masses. And I think what's happening too is take your general pop person who's really super into running, or the general pop person who's super into plyometrics. There is enough personal experts out there who have studied it themselves and are reputable. I think of Brett Contreras. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, but he's the glute guy. And he kind of did it first. He really dove down this rabbit hole of how to activate the glutes the best first. And then I think even he was funding some of the studies around it to see the difference between a seated leg curl machine versus a lying leg curl machine and things like that, to, again, get the quantitative data around an anecdotal observational tidbit of information. Because of that, you get to have pillars in a way of people who become the poster child of their area. This guy becomes the 100-mile race guy. This guy becomes the glute guy. And then I think it does help steer general pop. It's just about, and really what I'm going to get at here is a piece that we're all struggling with in today's society, and it's discernment. The word discernment is only 500 years old in the human psychology, in the brain, in the cognition. But that's what it comes down to, is discerning when it's time to go, when it's time to rest, when it's time to accept this program, and when it's time to say, I think this is a load of shit. And that's what is the bottleneck. And again, I think coaches can help general pop in the individual way of helping kind of trial and error, help groom them in the direction of being a self-sufficient regression monitor. But that's where I see, again, the biggest gap and use for personal trainers is in the biggest realm where we see the highest issues, which I think are related to workplace stress, workplace toxicity, people burning themselves out, people whittling themselves into a bone for what at the end of the day? I mean, there's a great example here locally, Larry Miller. He super wealthy guy, but in his 50s, he had diabetes and had to get his legs amputated, and he died shortly after. It's like, okay, he spent and dedicated his life to building his empire, which he's still remembered for to this day, but did he get to lead a life worth living that he passed down to his kids and grandkids? I doubt people are telling other people and children to work as hard as you can, sacrifice your health, and just stack as much money and paper as you can. I think that was an old way of thinking, but we realized that you can have health without wealth and build your wealth later. You can't have wealth without health and just add years to your life. If you're dead, you're dead. What good is wealth? I think Denzel Washington said it too. You don't see a hearse, or you don't see a U-Haul behind a hearse. I think it has reestablished people to understand how valuable their time is and how limited it is and how they actually want to spend it. And while yes, it does need to be a level to which they're making income, supporting themselves, allowing themselves to have the fruits of life, to go on vacations, take their kids on vacations, be able to, the opportunity to be able to say, I have extra resources. I get to go donate. I get to donate my time or money to charities. I mean, that's a blessing that you get to. Again, I think this is just all because of paradigm shifts in our culture, but it brings the coaching question back to, do we really need to worry about everyone's max performance or their ability to recover and sustain their most perform level and a consistent level for their lifetime? Even an athlete.
Yeah, you have to have the balance. And a lot of younger athletes don't understand that, and I didn't understand it. You definitely, it's a tried and true thing of going through a sport or through a career that you kind of know and learn, but that's the goal of us being able to teach younger professionals. Let's not even say athletes, just professionals in the field, saying, hey, here's how to balance some things. The work life or your work day, very similar to a training program. Some days you're going to have higher intensity. Some days you're going to have lower intensity, but you can't go high intensity every single day, every single week. You can do it for 3 days in a row, but you need a recovery day, because there's times in my program where we're doing It's very much similar to West Side. We're working up to heavy maxes almost every single day. And man, I'll tell you, by certain days, I'm fried. And the best thing is you learn from those programs. And now, granted, most people can succeed on those programs because back in the day they were taking performance enhancers. You read a lot of literature, they'll tell you that's how they survived it. And we see this kind of same thing in the real world happening too. People are getting, but the real world's a lot more detrimental to health and longevity. The real world, people are getting burnt out and all this stuff, and they're looking for performance enhancers. All right, so you said earlier, they're looking at GLPs, looking at TRT, HRT. At younger ages, this is very similar because you're now trying to supplement recovery or the body's health with other stuff, and it shows that it can work. We're not saying it's healthy or not. That's a conversation for a different day. But people are going to it earlier because they think that's what they need to do. And you kind of look at it, you step back and say, okay, how did I program some of my long-term clients or my clients that were high yield, high workers, high stress. And I still remember certain days that people come in, man, I've had such a stressful day. And I look at my training program and go, well, we're going to have to change some things up a little bit. It's high stress. My number one thing I would do with people is you have a high stress day. Let's go grab a heavy med ball and you're going to slam this thing just to get them into a pattern where, hey, they can release something, but it might not be the best to say, hey, we need to run heavy, what we were doing, depending on the person's state of mind, because that might not help. And it's the same thing with the 1,000%. Real world. If you add stress on stress, it might not help. It's very interesting. You look at training and you look at the overall realm of people's trajectory in the workforce. I think you nailed it greatly. Another thing that you very much saw from clients over the years of working is they really understood what life was. You'd have people, I'm going to work hard, but how many people on Friday, they'd be, what? Saturday, Sunday, I'm shutting it down. I'm going on vacation. I'm spending it with my family. Now, we saw a little bit of both of where we're at, but they definitely took from people that we respected saying, hey, here's my recovery time. Here's where I'm going away. I'm doing this. I can do X, Y, and Z. And it really put it in a perspective of being, okay, this is how I need to model my career. And even talking to some former coaches. I remember talking to one coach who early on in my career, it was a Friday afternoon saying, hey, just make sure in your career that you don't work Saturdays and Sundays. Take time, make sure you go on vacation when you have a family, but Saturday, Sunday should be for you. Then I would see some other coaches work Saturday, Sundays, and they would be murdered and burnt out and just exhausted by the time Monday came around. And it was like, do I really want to be in that lifestyle? For what? You make a bunch of money, but you said you trade off money for life and health. And it's funny that you get these tidbits and you can see it as you grow and you look back. Then how do we help people even that are older or younger than us? How do we coach people to understand that going through their workday or their day is just programming for exercise? You got to have a little bit of mobility. You got to have a little bit of activation. You got to have a little bit of heavy stress. You got to have a little bit. It's funny how once you understand how to program, your days and your life can become a lot manageable. You can be successful, longevity. You can donate, you can take time. And that's an end goal for anyone. I'm sure people are thinking, oh, hey, they're going to talk about exercise results. And it's at some point we start going, hey, it's more about quality of life. Have people have happy quality of life than it is, oh, this person's going to get 3 pounds of increased muscle mass.
Yeah, and I think tying it back to the bigger picture of why we're here in the first place has been crucial for this kind of paradigm shift and people learning appropriately, because I think people overcorrect. People wouldn't adjust their health. All of a sudden, they connect from the dots of weights, health, fit, healthy, eating, long life, and they just have to, okay, I got to go do all this stuff. And they almost overcorrect and do too much. But there is a balance in finding what is going to fit your lifestyle. And at the end of the day, I think people are always putting this aspect of satisfaction or joy outside of them. Oh, okay, once I do this, once I go to the gym 5 days a week and I prepare my own meals and I have a six pack, I'll finally be happy. And so listen, if you're not happy now, once you have all those things, you're not going to be happy either. Because it's just such a different mindset of rather than being, well, what are we doing this for? It's at the end of the day, you're supposed to be enjoying your life, living it to its fullest, not just searching for the biggest muscle gains or the biggest strength gains. And I think it's a great place for people to start, but then layers of an onion, it gets deeper and deeper until it's kind of rooted into who you are, because it's less about just making sure you look good at the end of your workout, because even that can be a bottleneck and create a body image disorder when everyone snapshots their post-workout flex picture. But it's really about just literally what Think Fitness Life is about integrating fitness into your life and thinking about things in a way that you can be the satisfaction. And I'm going to reference this quote, I'm going to butcher it, but it's basically satisfaction comes from knowing that you did everything in your ability to be the best you can. And that includes a careful balance of rest. Over rest, but not under rest either. And back to the way things have shifted, we've seen what happens when people just power through it or white knuckle it through it. We've seen those athletes who in their 40s and 50s can't even move. We've seen, who was it? Who ate nothing but a peanut, lightweight baby.
Ronnie Coleman. Oof.
Yeah, it's really sad, but he's a fighter. He still gets up there. He still does those public events. He does the public speaking, but it should be a little bit more apparent in our brains that we don't always have to overcome that signal of maybe I should stop, because maybe that's actually a good signal in our brains trying to find that balance point. Whereas before we'd be just freaking just do it, just do it, just do it. Blood, sweat, and tears. And then there is that level, that drive needs to be there, but it does need to be carefully balanced. And how many times do we see, and Jordan talked about this recently, how many times do we see all-stars sit out a game? And again, we do it too much now. And now someone will be like, I have a hangnail, I'm not going to play. But we've gotten more careful about, okay, this person, or even our percussion protocols. This person had a helmet-to-helmet hit 4 days ago. I don't know if they're ready to play this game yet. And that's a type of love. That's a community love that's caring for this individual, not just their performance that day, but their quality of life in the bigger picture. I think it's all come in an ebb and flow manner. And I think there's always going to be pluses and minuses to the new technological advances that come into the equation. But I generally believe that everything has led into a positive, a more net positive gain for community, individuals, and fitness as a whole.
Yeah. And when it's funny, because I've had some clients where fitness kind of fits in, is it can help structure that. That reminds me, you say, where does the Think Fitness Life and how does exercise? And I've had a client recently who the exercise routine has set the standard for the rest of his routine. And not saying that it's end all be all, but it's more the feeling, oh, exercise is not driving it. It's his feeling that he's exercising every day, but it's driving him to feel better every day. But now he makes better choices when it comes to nutrition or what he's going to do later in the day, stay up late or not, because that kind of helps drive the routine. And that's kind of, I think, our world of exercise. Exercise is super important, but as a structure of building someone's routine and habits is a bigger play than oh, hey, we're coaching to coach. We're coaching to get stronger in the squats. And that's one realm where you'll look at college strength coaches or strength coaches in general, and which is something I've always wanted to be. But you look at it and you go, well, they're an athlete. They're just training for when that athlete's basically done. Small, hey, I don't care what it takes. I have 4 years with you and then you're done. I don't care. Where people sitting out, like Jordan said, it's you start looking at the bigger picture. Okay, how does this day, how can this set you up for 5-10 years down the road? How can exercise programs set you up behaviorally 5-10 down the road, genetically 5-10 down the road. And it's one thing that it's you when you take that step back and go, oh man, as coaches, we really probably had a pretty big impact on some people's lives, more than we thought. We were just thinking, okay, arbitrarily, we need to get them to lose weight, body fat percentage, get them to their goals. But it might have set some people up to have a culture of this is their life. And then now this influences their kids' lives, and it changes the trajectory of what they're doing, their kids are doing, or their outcomes of whatever their success in their career. I mean, in my head, I think of some people that we've worked with and seen how far they've come along as young kids and then developing into athletes and where they've gone since. You can't help to wonder how some of our regiment and routine help structure their culture. And it's cool to look back and think about that. We've given some people some hard stuff. And to your point, when we say that people, there's time for rest, there's also time for hard work and hard stuff. And there will be people that will always know the work that we give them, and they'll always remember that. And that might set the tone to be, hey, I did something hard as can be. That sucked. But what I'm dealing with now, this isn't bad from a workout standpoint, or maybe a minor stress. And I'm not saying that that's going to be the end all be all, but as we start working into that realm of talking into the athletes of today's age, the people who are working behind desks, computers, maybe manual labor, people in the workforce, those are our athletes. And that's really what we love to care about, is how to make their careers as long as possible, as best as possible, and change their culture, because that's what they're going to do day in and day out. And it's important for us to be able to understand what they're doing from are they sitting all day? Are they standing all day? From a posture, mechanic, nutrition standpoint. And that's why I loved talking when we did go to some of those events and corporate speakings and talking to people and educating on stuff that maybe they've heard, but they were too afraid to really ask the question. And then it leads into, okay, hey, we come check us out, check out some more information. And it's always how to help people kind of solve their world of being an everyday athlete.
I just want to throw in one aspect there and kind of wrap up and kind of piggyback on what Eric's saying there. You mentioned something earlier about someone coming in stressed out and having them hit a medicine ball, or slam a medicine ball. That little example, there's a few different ways that could actually go wrong. I mean, we could, as coaches, we could anticipate, or we could take someone's anger, they're pissed off, and then we go make them slam a med ball, versus someone's stressed and we're trying to get them to get an outlet, a down regulation of that stress. And the difference is, one is rehearsing and fine tuning a behavior, rehearsing their anger for long term. And the other one is helping their body have almost a pressure release valve. And that little micro audible that Eric called in his example there, when someone comes in, that change in the way his program did, as a coach, you go down those rabbit holes of, okay, here's a fork in the road. If I go here, is it going to lead to something more negative? Or if I go here, is this going to solidify more net positive behavior in this individual? And nothing's ever going to be perfect, but what we look for is what's called a successive approximation towards the goal. We're always looking to better the individual in some way. And AI can't do that for us in real time. There will always be that level to which a coach can adapt and perceive and pick up signals and observe and make a new sort of observational endeavor and decision based upon that. And there's a layer to which this gets a little deep here, but all we are is just the universe experiencing itself. This other human that's in front of me, if I give them 100% of my attention and focus, which is what a personal trainer should do, I'm actually going to spit out information that is so much around this individual. And together it's two lives focusing on one. What is guided to us as coaches can also be in tune with the universe and what's driven in our instinctual awareness can be stimulated by God. And you can be sitting there being, I don't know why, but I just feel like we should be doing a rear foot elevated squat now. And then your brain goes to, I don't know if you've experienced this, I'm sure you have, but then your brain goes to, okay, we're going to go do that, but why is that perfect now? And then your brain collects the 3 reasons why that's perfect almost after the fact of being pulled in that direction. No, this is why we're doing this. This makes much sense. And AI is not going to be able to replicate that. And I love how we bring it back to the people at our forefront now, because the trenches are the people who are working their butt off. Some people dream of success while others wake up and work hard at it. We vilified the word work in today's society. When in the 20s and 30s, you were ecstatic. You were proud to go have work to do, to not only have a purpose for your energy and your life, but that have something to come back to and return to your family for what you went out and achieved. And now everyone's, oh, work is a 4-letter word. I just want a vacation. We've adopted this kind of hedonistic or anarchist kind of way of living. And when you think about it, again, the front lines are those people who are struggling to stay consistent with their work because it is a stressful endeavor. You think about having kids that you have to feed, a house, a mortgage, and you got to worry about benefits, things that on top of it. But if we look at these companies, we really vilify sometimes. If we look at these companies, I'll use Walmart as an example because everyone hates Walmart. Walmart donated close to 10 million, no, excuse me, it was 750 million pounds of food through partnerships and organizations feeding America. And that was in 2024 alone. Yes, they're a profitable organization, but if they weren't profitable, they wouldn't have had the opportunity to spend that 750 million pounds of food on the needy. Again, that's where our endeavors as coaches have gone. Thinkfitness Life is now evolving into Think Work Well. And all I can say now is the message really is just about better health, stronger teams, real results. And I just would like to leave it at that.
Awesome.
That's your everyone's an athlete. Some people's field is a desk and a cubicle.
And I think that's more important nowadays, because that's really an athlete. You get a lot that once you're done being an athlete, that's where your world starts. You're going to spend majority of your life in that. And it's when you said about the med ball slam audible, I never thought about, it made me think about at the time you said, are they stressed in different ways? Because that med ball slam might be not good because they're in a different kind of stress. It made me think of how many sessions do you really remember of when someone, okay, we're doing X, Y, and Z. Not many, your standard session, but you remember the sessions where someone was, hey, I'm stressed out, and they started opening up to you. And they were, hey, I had this going on. And we're still a coach, but all of a sudden you're playing this coach therapist. And it's those sessions, I mean, I can think of clearly many clients that I've had with them. And what we're doing is, it doesn't matter what's written on that page then, because now becomes you're diving in and you're looking into this person's autonomics and how do you help their autonomics. And you said that's something that AI that will never be able to do. And that's the most important part of, for me, coaching is, what does that person look like when they come through the door? Do they just lost their best friend? Are they coming up, something just went bad in work and they're struggling? Or they come in, hey, they just got great news. That's what coaches are going to read. And that's what makes coaches effective from the programming. And it's when you said I didn't really realize I missed that step of saying, oh yeah, if someone's stressed, just give them a med ball slam. It's no, it all depends. And every day is a different day. And that's where we talk these everyday athletes that are in the workforce. You're going to take in consideration not only nutrition and posture and stuff, but where are they from an autonomic nervous system standpoint? You nailed it. That's one of the most important things for longevity. And that's something we've always taken really pride in, that mindset, and knowing it is priority number one.
Absolutely. What's good for the bee is what's good for the hive.
And that'll wrap up episode 200, just the old days. We got a lot going on. As Matt said, we are transitioning into
work well.
And
we're still keeping the podcast going alive, though.
It's just a different, as the world adapts and as we are looking at it, how can we adapt to help the world out? And that's always been our priority, and something that many people, they don't see behind the scenes, but we have hours of stuff that we've worked on to kind of keep up with this ever-changing world of the exercise state, the world of the health state, nutrition state. And it's just another thing, another passion that we to keep pushing on and helping people to just become better. And it's been one of those, I said earlier, one of those pleasures. Even though we are cross country, we still have the same goal of how do we improve people's lives, and how do we keep people going? They can keep going.
How can we embody the ability to adapt for our clients in our own industry to exemplify what needs to happen as a whole?
Love it. Well, that wraps us up for episode 200. We will catch you next time.
Awesome to come back. Awesome to come back. Thanks for having me.
Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie here from Thinkfitness Life. Our entire careers have been dedicated to fitness, particularly how the mind helps the body. We've been around gyms and nutrition strategies for 25 plus years collectively, and nothing harms or helps better than your own mind, untrained or trained. Pushing beyond your limits, overcoming whatever's thrown your way, and making the decision to show up day in and day out as a lifestyle takes more soul than sand. And what I mean by that is when you can get your mindset and heart leading you consistently in the direction of your goals and dreams, well, it's just a matter of time before you have the performance, physique, or quality of life you're yearning for. See, your thoughts will stem from your beliefs, which will then lead you to action, which develop into your behavior and ultimately lead you to results. It's really that simple. Our process takes time, and it takes open communication. It's amazing what pops up along the fitness journey to betterment, and we can be there every step of the way. To learn more or apply for coaching, visit www.thinkfitnesslife.com. Start recreating your life today.